Good morning.
Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Not only good morning,
Oh,
good afternoon, and good evening.
yes.
We got a global audience here for World Corrosion Awareness Day. Hi, Heidi.
Hello, global audience and some global guests.
Yes, we have some really great guests that we'll be bringing on, and a lot of great, interesting topics that we'll be also covering as well. Heidi, a lot of opportunity here in the last couple of days to take a look and see, who out there is really promoting, celebrating. I guess you would say the word celebrating, but let's just say addressing the Corrosion Awareness Day. And I've seen a lot of great posts this morning on LinkedIn regarding it. And then also, too, I know there are some global events that are going on. The Corrosion Institute of Southern Africa just had one on Wednesday of this past week. And I believe today in Pakistan, I believe the NACE section, I think in Pakistan. And I know there's other organizations and companies and things like that are out there talking about corrosion awareness. So what I'd like to do, obviously, when we open up here, is kind of cover with everybody. What is Corrosion Awareness Day? And bear with me here, and I'll bring something up here for us here. Share screen. Oh, don't want to do that. It's live. It's live. Here we go. So, Corrosion Awareness Day should be every day. And what I'd like to have everybody do is post, what corrosion awareness means to you. That's really important. We like to know what it means to you. But when we look at World Corrosion Awareness Day, this day was created in 2012. Get this up here. It's not working. All right, it is not working. So we'll go back to square one here. I had a good video there, but it's not working.
You did. I think I got it. Was it the one I viewed the other day?
Definitely the one that you viewed the other day.
I'll let the viewers know it was a great video. But as you were saying about the World Corrosion Day, it began in 2012, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And what it was to bring awareness, obviously, to the devastating impact that corrosion has on our infrastructure, but really when we look at it in our daily lives. So we deal with corrosion. It could be if you have a metal shed, and obviously if it's not protected, it's going to want to return back. Steel wants to go back. Materials want to go back to its normal state, go back to, its original condition. So it also addresses corrosion related to anything in our daily lives and things like that. So we want to make sure too that, this day should exist every day. And why don't we go ahead and we'll bring on our guest at this time, right?
Yep. And let me add to your description of Corrosion Awareness Day. It was created in a way to look at the socioeconomic impact it has on everything in the world. It's a day to bring awareness, to exchange practices, best practices, and again, to look at it from an economic point of view. Good morning, Mauricio. Hello. Hi, Brenda. And I'm saying good morning again, but we have a global audience. But again, just to piggyback on your description of the World Corrosion Awareness Day, it comes from a socioeconomic point of view. So we want to measure the impact that how it affects the world in so many different ways. And again, exchange. All the viewers, please post your best practices, post your expertise, post your questions. We want to engage today as well as learn and teach. So go ahead and bring Payel on.
Yeah, and then what we can do is I think we should talk a little bit about our own perspectives when it comes to corrosion awareness. What does it mean to us individually and professionally as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so let's go and we'll bring on Payal Patty from Fiji. Payal, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. It's really early morning, and good evening to those who are watching from around the world. Well, it's a great day and a happy World Corrosion Awareness Day. I'm very excited to be here today.
Very good. And let's also bring on Tolga Daraz, who's a protective coating specialist. And Tolga, you're coming to us from Turkey.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone in the world. Right now in Turkey, it's coming to 5 p.m. So we are really experiencing the late day. So, have a nice, webinar.
Very good.
See you.
Payal, let me start with you. When it comes to Corrosion Awareness Day and corrosion awareness, could you probably, I think the best thing to do is explain to everyone your background, what you do professionally, and also to maybe talk about what corrosion awareness means to you.
Oh, well, definitely, yes. Basically, my background would be when we started off would have been automotive. We were just focusing on putting application of protective coating on automotive vehicles, and we have done a few small fiber boats and ships as well. But then the attention drove to understanding the whole process. What are we trying to prevent? What are we trying to fix? What is corrosion about? And then we realized that mainly all of Fiji or the South Pacific's big ships or big boats for any sort of rust or corrosion removal or the work that's happens on them goes overseas, which costs millions of dollars. Then I realized we do not have an association about which creates awareness or which provides information to people about corrosion and its effect, long effects on our infrastructure or the money that we actually put in buying these assets. So we started to, from automotive, doing cars, we started diverting our business and the whole aspects of coating and surface preparation and generally. So now I could say that I'd like to say generally that now we are working into establishing the first corrosion association in the South Pacific, which will actually look after, and our main is to create awareness about corrosion and its effect on our environment, and to collect more data, to be able to give data out to anyone in the world, to develop and deliver better corrosion protection solution to the people of the Pacific. Yeah.
So when you're working with, obviously you're working with a lot of different island nations, when it comes to their governments, representation and things like that, how do they view corrosion? Do they take it as serious as an impact as it really is?
I don't really think, I'll be very honest with you, from the research that actually I've written a thesis on this corrosion in the South Pacific. So according to how much information I have been able to get and collect and put it together, we basically do not have that kind of attitude where with people are talking about it or people are too concerned about corrosion. I think I came across your video because I was doing my research, and I'm very happy I did, because it just opened my eye into the problem that is actually existing, and we're living with it. We are providing temporary solution, which is not going to benefit us in an year or so. So this is why we are looking at a permanent solution, or understanding that the importance of understanding anything before we do any sort of painting or correction. When I went to one of these biggest companies in Fiji, and I was just understanding their product and trying to just have a chat, I came to realize they do not have any sort of qualified experts or people behind them working and supporting this idea, or even giving good information to their clients that these are okay, I'm from NACE or from AMPP, and you have this kind of certificate or NACE certificate. They do not have this here. We have a couple of engineers or paint guys who had it, but now they have migrated. And you can understand now where we stand in terms of the seriousness of corrosion and how much we're talking about it. Even now when I'm posting or we are trying to create awareness, people are asking, so how is this going to benefit us? But the greater impact that we want to create, we want people to start asking us questions. We want more people showing interest. And I think, the outer islands will actually look into Fiji because Fiji is the forefront of the Pacific Islands. This is why we want to actually start the association in Fiji to reach out to these smaller islands who can't even survive. They can't survive drinking the normal water because there's the amount of salt, the amount of salt that's available, around them, because we're so. It's not just about global warming, which is raising the sea level, and then the salt is getting higher, and more corrosion, more rust. It's been always the issue because we are surrounded by sea for many years. We are island nation, and we have not spoken about it. So I hope that answers your question. And yeah, we're definitely here to make those changes.
No, it definitely did answer it. And, the other aspect to look at Corrosion Awareness Day, someone had asked me a question yesterday is, why is it on this particular day? And, we just came out of 2 days ago celebrating Earth Day, Global Earth Day. And I think it's important to showcase that we want to obviously be aware of global issues when it comes to environmental issues. But corrosion also does impact environmental issues as well.
It does actually. We had Nauru, one of those islands, which is actually disappearing from the world map now. It's at that stage. Their infrastructure doesn't survive because corrosion is eating away the island very slowly. But it's like a plague that's spreading. So our interest and we want to actually start talking about it, and we are actually in the process of talking with the Nauru embassy to introduce few protective coatings on their island to give some life.
And for those who would want to get in contact with Payal, her email is on the live stream right now. Payal, thank you very much for covering that, but don't go away. We got more we can talk about.
Yes, I have some questions too.
Go ahead, Heidi.
Oh, now I thought we were going to introduce Tolga.
Oh no, we can introduce Tolga. I'm kidding.
I love this live stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and we'll bring Tolga. Tolga Daraz, protective coating specialist. How you doing, my friend? Oh, we lost him.
Oh no.
So now we have Heidi.
I did a little too much of celebrating last night for World Corrosion Day, so I'm a little tired this morning.
Here he comes. He's coming back. Tolga, how you doing?
Thank you, my friend James. The internet in Turkey is not so reliable, so sorry for interruption.
Sometimes I get that. Sometimes I get that issue here in the States as well. So we're in the same boat sometimes. Tolga, Corrosion Awareness Day. Could you talk a little bit about your background? You've had a long professional career in corrosion and protective coatings. If you could cover your background and also talk a little bit about what corrosion awareness means to you. And then also too, I know you're doing some initiatives right now with your blog and everything like that focuses on the topic of corrosion.
Thank you very much, James. James, I'm coming from a chemical engineering profession. Actually, after I graduated from my university, which is an American university in Turkey, I selected the surface engineering and corrosion on purpose. And then, luckily, while I'm working in a metal fabrication yard in my hometown, I met with the professional organizations in United States like NACE International and SSPC, and then the conferences in SSPC conferences, PACE, and then the Codings Plus. I met you and a lot of nice, wise people like you. I mean, I'm really grateful for all the SSPC and NACE International professionals. They are so wise and so benevolent. So then I make my mind to be a coding inspector in Turkey. The first coding level 3 inspector. Actually, in Turkey, we have quite several projects in connection with United States and European companies, and they do want some professional certifications, especially NACE International and SSPC protective coding inspector certifications. And then I became the first NACE CIP3 in Turkey, but it doesn't stop there. And then I I continue to come and visit United States because of mostly for the conferences, the Corrosion conference or PACE conference, and then I became the PCS Protective Coding certified person in Turkey like you, after having a very detailed examination. So in 2010, am I right? Or 12, I am not quite sure. I created my non-profit website or web blog called corrosiondoctor.org, and it's quite I'm just sharing my knowledge and some news about worldwide corrosion and coding issues. And we have made some quite nice YouTube videos with you about corrosion and coding business, coding issues, technology, and that's a short of my life story, professional life story.
Where can we find your blog, Corrosion Doctor?
It is www.corrosion, but in K, it's like not in English. In Turkish, we are using K for corrosion. Corrosion doctor. Okay, maybe I can write it right now here.
There you go.
Let me try.
While you're doing that, that would be great. Jim, you want to bring up Lee Wilson's comment? He made a very big, good point.
Definitely, and I think it's something to talk about. So, basically what Lee says here, it's great to see global recognition on the impacts of corrosion. Obviously it is a growing challenge, but the impacts of corrosion are not just economical, but more importantly and imperatively to the safety of environment, personnel. There's all these different aspects that we need to focus on the safety aspect, the environmental impact as well, the economic impact, and do it 365 days a year. I could not agree more with Lee Wilson on this.
I think Payal made a very good point regarding this. I mean, speaking for the islands surrounding her and the organization that she's creating, safety is key there, and corrosion is almost life-saving in some areas. Corrosion prevention is almost life-saving in some areas of, the world.
Definitely. Tolga, you want to?
I'm trying to
no
do
problem.
Take your time.
Yeah, definitely.
Just
while you're doing
I figure out how to do it.
Here's a little bit of encouragement for you here.
Okay. Did you take my because I'm watching this live stream both from LinkedIn and StreamYard. So definitely I'm trying to do it both ways.
Well, what we can do is if you put it, perfect. There we go. Okay. I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to put it into the banner, and I'm going to make you a happy person.
Thank you. You are so kind.
Oh, thank you.
By the way, my PC has gone off. Very suddenly.
Oh, nice.
So I'm using my tablet, iPad. So my lightning and it might not be so nice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that.
No,
it's not a studio quality video.
It's live streaming. Take a breath.
Yeah, it's okay.
Be human. That's a beautiful thing about this. It's in real life. So the other thing too, a lot of the viewers might not know, and I know because Tolga, you and I have been friends for almost a decade now. Really? Yes. Your background, you've had the opportunity to work not only in the aspect of planning corrosion programs, coding programs, but you've also had the opportunity to work in the field, and you've also had the opportunity to work in the aspect of the contractors and things like that. When it comes to the collaboration, when it comes to corrosion, now you're going to be able to speak more, I think, to Europe and to Turkey specifically. Is there a lot of good collaboration that's going on right now between the contractors, the manufacturers, let's say the coating manufacturers or the cathodic protection manufacturers and suppliers, and let's say just the general industry when it comes to corrosion?
Yeah, actually, when I first started my professional career in 2003, not so much as professional organizations. Do you hear me?
Yep. Keep talking.
Okay.
I was saying hello to Kevin.
Okay. When I first started in 2003, not so much professional organizations like NACE International or SSPC or other organizations in the world has not been known in Turkey. Actually, they were very far from reality in Turkey. But starting from something around 2006 or 7 or 8, in the specifications and in the international specifications and the contracts, the profession certifications come out. So it's because of this mandatory issues. We have all in the coding and steel fabrication or paint industry. We all or people in Turkey all complied with the certifications, and the NACE International SSPC come up to the reality, or it became more popular then after then, like 2008, 9, 10. So and then becomes the merger of SSPC and NACE International, and it becomes very, very popular in Turkey right now because of this huge merger between SSPC and NACE International. And the coming to the professional certifications, I don't know. You know that, but in Europe there is a certification scheme called the European Certification Scheme, which is very, very similar to United States and America or other countries. But so since there is a tendency in Turkey to become a European Union, we are also a candidate of European Union. So we are more likely to use international standards or industrial standards like NACE International, SSPC, or ISO, or any other standards in the world. The ANSI, ASTM. So it's getting more and more popular. Actually, we are living with all these realities, with this becoming more global in the world.
Yeah. Jim, he mentioned the combining of NACE and SSBC. Did you have anything to add to that?
Well, for my professional story, so I've been with Legacy SSPC and now with AMP for just a little over 8 years now. And prior to that, I came from in Pittsburgh. I have the backdrop of Pittsburgh here, so it's known as the Steel City. And I worked in a steel service center, which supplied steel product, and then also they had fabrication and powder coating as well. So my background was, predominantly in that steel side, fabrication side, and then my closeness, let's say, to coatings was the powder coating and things like that. We dealt with corrosion issues and challenges every day, because when you had product that you were bringing from the mill, and then you were taking that product and you were cutting it down to be able to sell it or distribute it to fabricators or even use it internally. Customers would be sending product in for us to go ahead and prep it, which means basically surface prep it, and then go ahead and do a powder coat on it. So not only we were fabricating stuff, but also too, we were taking existing materials, product, and also providing the painting services for it. So we had to make sure that we had corrosion covered in different areas, obviously. The way it's handled, related to the transportation of it, the storage, and then obviously for the prep before it would be painted and everything like that. So when I had the opportunity and I went to SSPC, now I was focused obviously on the protective coating side, and surface preparation, as everyone knows, that's 80% or better of the battle on it. And obviously you're not only doing the surface prep to remove existing coatings and deal with corrosion issues, obviously, with the surface, but you also have to make sure that, there are certain ways to treat the surface in between the surface preparation, and then you're doing your coating application. Obviously the inspection is very critical, both during and the process of surface preparation, coating application. When I would work with contacts, obviously being on the coating side, I'm talking about one side of a coin, let's say a quarter, and I'm talking on one side of the coin. And now with the merger between SSPC and NACE and becoming AMP, now that gives me and a lot of really the organization now to focus even more heavily on both sides of that coin to tackle the corrosion challenges that we have. And I'd also say corrosion opportunities for the industry, but also too on the coating side, and the same thing when it comes to challenges and opportunities, because we're in a multi-billion-dollar industry when you look at corrosion and coatings.
Mm-hmm.
And, the governments of the world need to really step up and have corrosion awareness, because infrastructure, you spend so much money in putting in a bridge, for example. And if you really want it to be a 100-year bridge, especially when you're looking at, it doesn't matter if it's concrete or steel, you've got to make sure that it's properly maintained. And part of that is tackling corrosion challenges through CP, cathodic protection, or coatings, protective coatings to create a barrier and things like that. So it's so important and critical. And that's really what I enjoy about this industry, is that, we're tackling a major, major problem. And, I'm working with some very, big companies out there, including, even working with governmental contacts. And, we have state departments of transportation, we have ministries of transportation we work with, but you're talking about, industries, marine, even structural steel. You're talking, into things such as like automotive and other type of equipment. In the concrete side, there's water, wastewater, even when you're dealing with water treatment, there's just so many industries that really need the professional aspect of what I'll bring, but also too, they need to make sure that they're being very aware of these corrosion challenges that are out there.
Well, I think a good time to bring in Benji's comment. If it wasn't for corrosion, I wouldn't have a job, which is so good for all of us. So I appreciate your comment, Benji, but you're right.
Here it is.
What corrosion means to all of us viewers, post what industry you're in, what practices you use to prevent it. I'm key into prevention of corrosion, and I work in the pipeline integrity industry, and I offer innovative pipeline integrity products. And so prevention is key. I think World Corrosion Awareness Day is, like Lee said, one day, or needs to be 365 days a year, because prevention of corrosion would save us money. Like you mentioned of the bridges, they put so much time into the architecture and the infrastructure and the construction of them. But prevention of corrosion and erosion should be just as important, Jim. So you brought up a good point.
No, and definitely. And when you really think about it, a lot of this will start in the design. When you're dealing in engineering and design, our architects, our designers and engineers out there, they need to really also be aware of corrosion, because you can actually design assets, infrastructure, and products so that they can help. Maybe they don't eliminate the corrosion issue, but they can help address it, to minimize it, or to really mitigate it in some cases, the uses of different types of materials. Even when you're looking at protecting a concrete bridge, for example, and you've got steel rebar, there are different ways either to have treated rebar, coated rebar, even tying in cathodic protection. There's different ways to really address these. And so the engineering is very important. And, to Benji's point, there are a lot of us in the industry, obviously, that, it's an opportunity for us as a business or an organization to really address these issues, but also earn a living as well. But, it's also up to all of us to help educate these asset owners, and then also look at a younger generation to also educate them to come into this industry.
Great.
And, I think with Payal, we've had that conversation before, where, the things that you're doing, your company structure is absolutely amazing. And then, you are out there really, you're the one kind of out there pushing hard to
Mhm.
take corrosion serious. And
Yes.
I commend you for all that you do and all that you will be doing. It's going to be amazing to see the new association you're starting and where you guys are going.
Thank you. Yes, I totally agree with you. It's actually, I would like to celebrate in a bigger way, provided 2022 goes really well for us. The whole of preparing, we really want to take this issue very seriously. Because if I personally feel like that we need it, I'm pretty sure the bigger companies or the engineers should consider it the same way in a serious manner. The issue here is that, like you said, our young youths or the universities or the school curriculums, I'm not saying that we'd compare with the overseas standard, but we would like to start implementing these topics into the universities or the schools at least, or as a career. Start talking about, like in the previous topics, we're talking about women in corrosion. Like we want to start encouraging that. I was just talking to my brother, who's an engineer at one of the, and who's schooled out of one of the biggest university in Fiji, and he's working for one of the biggest food manufacturing company. And I said, what is the maximum corrosion topic you have covered in your university? He said, I think in high school. And I was like, I think it's just one unit or one chapter. And I was like, oh my God, seriously? And that's how surprised I am at this point, that how we consider, how our perspective is. It doesn't seem like a serious issue. But the time they actually start, they want to actually resolve the problem that is created by corrosion on the asset or the property or the bridge, they're forking out a lot of money. But even if you talk about providing this kind of protection, those engineers who can draw this or start talking about the pre-work before coating or before building up something, this could prevent all this in future for us, I hope. And then, yes, our company was previously, I'll be honest, focused about just doing industrial coating. But then I just realized that it's not just about putting up a coating, it's about understanding why we're doing it. What is the importance of doing a surface preparation? And we do not have those experts here also who provide the high standards of all the machines that actually does sandblasting or ice blasting, those the different type of blasting is available to prepare. We do not have all those. I was just having a chat with Jim previously, and I'm saying we'll be bringing in all the machine. But yes, we are working, and we are really looking forward to officially establishing the first step into corrosion association for the South Pacific countries. And I think I need all the support. And I'm amazed by the support I'm getting and the previous email and the people who have given us feedback. Thank you so much. And I was like, we feel very welcomed right now.
That's great. Lee provided an additional post here. He's talking about an evolution globally with the integration of professional institutions, standards, and countries now starting to combine to tackle the global corrosion issues. This has and will evolve and integrate manufacturers, suppliers, equipment, and technologies globally, as opposed to being centered on a few leading countries with the experience. The sharing of all of our combined experiences is essential for world growth of corrosion control, and I finally see this happening. Tolga, you and I had done at least a 2 or 3 or maybe even a 4-part series when we talked about looking at the digitalization and transformation of the industry. Could you talk a little bit about kind of to Lee's point? Everything seems to be starting to come together now at this point in history for the corrosion coating side.
Yeah, in every industry, I'm sorry, I'm at home right now, and the bell is ringing anyway. In every industry, the digital transformation has come to some point. So the coatings and corrosion business is not the exception. As we talk in our YouTube sessions, James, the digitalization and digital transformation is inevitable because of the tremendous amounts of advantages like the IoTs and the big data, the artificial intelligence. So all sorts of all the members, all the constituents of the digital transformation is somehow we are seeing in different countries, in different companies, this concepts utilizing in the coating or corrosion business. Would you like to add something? I mean, it's a general thing because it's very very detailed subject, digital transformation, because or something like 17 or 18 members of the digital transformation concepts are out there in the world. So I mean, you can use one or multiple of them to have some advantageous outcome or results in your business.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think we're seeing it, COVID, obviously, when we're looking at the pandemic really kind of changed a lot when it comes to the corrosion and coatings industry. What I mean by that is, we weren't able to travel for the most part. We weren't able really to do face-to-face meetings anymore. And so it really pushed both the corrosion and the coatings industries into accepting and also pretty much jumping quicker into digital transformation. So now you have companies and manufacturers and suppliers that have, chatbot capability. They have, you're able to talk to a live person. The utilization of Zoom and other type of conferencing. Right now, currently, AMP has just completed a successful first week of the Corrosion Virtual 2021. Next week is going to be the second week, and the numbers are phenomenal for participation.
Especially internationally, because it is virtual now.
It's virtual, and just so everybody knows, with Corrosion Virtual 2021,
and James,
but
there are some of the functionalities, digital functionalities. Would you like to mention some of them? Because I think I have heard in your previous session episodes that you were talking with some of the IT guys or some of the AMP guys.
The corrosion, the event.
Yeah, we had a live stream with the AMP conferences and exhibits team, and they ran through the platform when it comes to virtual Corrosion Virtual 2021. Some of the things that I really love about the platform was that I have the capability to network within the conference attendees. The other thing is I can send messages to them, and I can also set up meetings and have actual face-to-face, even though it's a virtual meeting, I can have that meetings with them. The content is available. So if I'm watching one particular set of content while another session's running, I can go back and watch that other session that unfortunately I had to miss because I want to watch one of the sessions. And the other nice thing about it is that when you're registered, and people can register even after the conference is done, you can still register now and even after, that content, that information, that platform is still going to be live and available for people to utilize till the end of October. And so there's a lot of information in there. And all the sessions I've had opportunities to attend have been just phenomenal with the content and the information. And I think the timing with not only Earth Day, but also Corrosion Awareness Day is very, very good for the Corrosion Virtual for AMP. But I was just, and Tolga, you and I've seen you in sessions. I know that you've done some sessions. What's your, I'm going to be biased because I work for AMP. What's been your experience with the virtual conference from AMP?
Frankly speaking, I'm it's like an ocean, so I'm trying to dive into the ocean. So I couldn't really. I didn't think that I have come to the. I am in the shores of this ocean, I can say. So I think you are much better than me in terms of this experience, James.
Jim.
Well, and the other thing too, I went in and I thanked all the exhibitors because listen, when we're coming out of this pandemic, and I appreciate all the exhibitors, the sponsors. I even had a chance. I haven't done them all. The student posters. I know when you have a physical conference, and the students, when you get a chance to talk with them, and this is their PhD work, or maybe it's their graduate work, and just to see the passion they put into this research, but also see the outcome of their research. And I think I've already thanked maybe half of the posters that are on the Corrosion Virtual. And I want to go through the rest of them too, because again, the younger generation is critical for the success of the corrosion and coatings industries. And we need to do as much as we can to listen. Most of us all, I don't think anybody on here grew up saying, I'm going to work in corrosion and coatings. And we wind up in this industry. And then once we're in it, we love it. And we really are passionate about it.
Absolutely.
But we have to be able to transfer that to the younger generation so that they understand the importance of it. But also, again, continuing to bring awareness, like we talked about, educating engineers, educating specifiers, educating the owners out there of these assets. And more importantly, it would be the governments to make sure that they understand how critical dealing with corrosion issues is for not only infrastructure, but also it impacts, and I'll bring it up because I want to also talk about the most important study done, which is the 2016 impact study that was done by NACE International. We know that the cost of corrosion, just like it was established back in 2002, I think in the original study from NACE International, is that it's huge globally, but also too with corrosion management strategies that are in place, you can have a realized savings that also impacts in a positive way the GDP, but it also in the process creates an industry so that you have contractors, you have manufacturers, you have service providers, and you also have, and when it comes to research and development, it just creates this corrosion and coatings industry, which it can be beneficial to the GDP because it adds to it in a positive way.
Well, let me add, I'm going to go back a little bit. Speaking of the digital transformation in corrosion 2021 events, with COVID, all of this being virtual gives us a little bit more time to research on the internet, attend these events virtually. The Corrosion 2021 event, one of our manufacturers, Amcor, is there, which Viscotech is a smart healing viscous elastic coating. But you could go there and learn about that in their virtual trade booth. I mean, it's really incredible, the digital transformation that has taken place during COVID. So I wanted to add that. Second thing I wanted to add, I wouldn't say educating engineers, because in my line, the pipeline industry, the integrity engineers are key in the design and planning of prevention of corrosion. And they are so smart and so defined in the corrosion prevention that they practice. So I want to interrupt and say that the integrity engineers that I work with, I've only been in the industry for a few years. I've learned so much from them. As we all know, the pipeline integrity industry is very important to North America, I can at least say, in prevention of corrosion. I mean, there's atmospheric corrosion. There's so many things. And, we have this LinkedIn Live and YouTube and Facebook Live for a while here. And there's a lot of practices that we could talk a little bit more going into this economic study. So after we, do we have a video to view for that study, or?
We do, but what I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to try to play, I got a video that came in from this past Wednesday's Corrosion Awareness Day event with the Corrosion Institute of Southern Africa. Yes. And also to Nelson De La Cruz from Info Corrosion sent and actually some information related to Corrosion Awareness Day in Latin America. The first part of his video will be in Spanish, and then the second part he does in English. So let's go ahead and let's play those right now. Hopefully it works.
Yeah.
So the Corrosion Institute of Southern Africa, they had a very well attended event here this past Wednesday, and they also did lectures. They did courses as well, and it was really good to see the celebration they did.
Yeah, and sponsoring the youth like
Exactly, and they have very good participation. It doesn't matter where you are globally. Corrosion is a big challenge, no matter what, and so it's really good to see, again, regionals when it comes to different organizations, associations, even sections. Like I mentioned earlier about the NACE section in Pakistan doing an event today as well.
James, let me add one thing. I think that since it's the 21st of April, it coincides with Earth Day. Am I right? And I think it's the first starting day that the WCO, World Corrosion Organization, launches this day. Back in 2010 or 9, I don't know.
2012?
12?
Yeah, 2012, yeah.
Then they switch over to 24th of April. From 21st.
No, originally it has always been on this day since it was initiated.
That was the Corrosion Institute of South Africa that was their event on April 21st.
Just for the Corrosion Institute in Southern Africa. They just had it on Wednesday. Again, here we're streaming on, well, for Heidi and I, and Tolga, I think it's still Saturday for you. But, we're doing this over the weekend. So sometimes it's difficult to get people to do things on the weekends because we've got families and other things we need to focus on.
Yeah.
You're right, James.
But I know Tolga. I was gonna say I know Tolga.
You have said, you have said, it's the passion. It's the passion of work.
Exactly. And Tolga, I know you're always 24/7, 365. If there was an extra day we could add there, you probably would do it as well. You're always talking about corrosion and coatings and. Like I say, knowing you for almost a decade now, there's never a topic that you don't seem to have really great insight on and a conversation you walk away from. So I greatly appreciate having your friendship. Yeah.
I greatly appreciate, and I'm also very grateful to you. Since you are one of my guides people in the industry, James. Back in 2010 to 2011, 12. 14. So and you are basically I see as an influencer in the corrosion business.
For sure.
It's a great thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. I do it again. Like I said, I'm very passionate about these industries, and also to I see it every day. Driving in Pittsburgh, we've got infrastructure that is literally corroding, and it needs to be addressed. And we think about it. I didn't even talk about the energy grid. We've got electrical transmission towers that are galvanized. That some are being obviously addressed globally, but again, aging, and when things age, they need to have proper maintenance done, and so that's why days like today are super super important. Let's go ahead and play the message from Nelson de la Cruz. From Info Corrosion.
Hola Jim, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Muchas gracias por tu invitación. Es un placer para mí poder estar aquí en este día tan especial. Y bueno, en Latinoamérica es necesario que los key players de la industria estén alineados, involucrados y comprometidos en demostrar y difundir el alto valor presente y futuro y la rentabilidad que generan los métodos de prevención y control de corrosión a los propietarios o administradores de la infraestructura, puesto que sin la inversión en la preservación de la integridad de los activos no va a ser posible dinamizar el desarrollo y la investigación en la industria y en los servicios. Por otro lado, los gobiernos deben sumarse a este trabajo en conjunto con las entidades privadas, puesto que sus sectores productivos y comerciales se ven permanentemente afectados económicamente por la corrosión, perdiendo competitividad. De este modo, se puede iniciar con 3 medidas. La primera, el desarrollo de las normas técnicas nacionales en el campo de la tecnología de la corrosión y los materiales. En segundo lugar, realizar un estudio de cálculo de costos, pérdidas y daños que genera la corrosión por sectores industriales en todos los países. Y tercero, promover la creación de la enseñanza especializada de la ingeniería de corrosión en las universidades. Con lo indicado hace un momento, consideramos que esto va a permitir que la industria crezca en productividad y calidad y deje de competir de manera desleal basado en precio y realmente nos enfoquemos en una competencia sana basados en términos del valor que agregan las soluciones. La competencia desleal en productos y servicios le hace mucho daño a la industria y en nuestra región ocurre de manera casi masiva. Por otro lado, debemos trabajar en lo que en el Centro de Capacitación de Infocorrosión llamamos la formación integral y proactiva, que considera no solo el traspaso de información, conocimientos y expertise de nuestros instructores a través de programas especializados a nivel de ingeniería de prevención y control de corrosión, sino complementando a esta formación la integración y desarrollo de habilidades blandas, tales como liderazgo, mentoría, pensamiento crítico, que quiere decir cuestionar permanente el status quo para encontrar espacios hacia la innovación y la mejora continua. Esta fórmula permitirá lograr que la industria de habla hispana sea creadora de soluciones con marcada presencia a nivel mundial. Es por ello que para Infocorrosión, para nosotros, es muy importante la suma de fuerzas, contando con la participación de entidades privadas y públicas con la que podamos hacer sinergias y que a la larga beneficiarán a todas las partes y por supuesto al país. ¿Qué permitirá todo esto? Tener una industria saludable, rentable, sustentable y confiable, con una hoja de ruta y compromisos claros en beneficio de todos los protagonistas de la industria, desde el aplicador de las soluciones hasta el dueño de la infraestructura. Y finalmente, que nuestra industria pueda marcar pautas a nivel mundial a través de su propio desarrollo tecnológico. Gracias. Hi Jim, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the invitation, and well, it's a pleasure to be here. About your question, in Latin America, it's necessary for the key players in the industry to be aligned, involved, and committed to demonstrate and promote the high present and future value and profitability that corrosion prevention and control methods generate to the owners or administrators of the infrastructure. Since without the investment in the preservation of the asset integrity, will not be possible to stimulate development and
Yep, I think we lost the audio there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, take it out.
I was about to say to you.
Well, Tolga, what are some of the coding objectives and challenges you deal with in Turkey?
Good question.
Environment,
Uh-huh.
temperature.
Actually, it's one of the things, I mean, we can divide it into three parts. The first one is the surface preparation. I think it's one of the biggest challenges is the importance of negligence of surface preparation, because most of the people in Turkey doesn't really understand the importance of surface preparation. The second is the coding selection issues that I am dealing every day because of, for example, the zinc-rich paints coatings and it is standards like in from SSPC NACE on ISO standards, using these standards respectively. And the third one is the application. Actually, the fourth one is the inspection. So there are basically four main areas that we are experiencing challenges. The first being the surface preparation of paints and coatings, which is very underestimated in Turkey and most of the world, I think so. The second one is the paint and coating selection in regards to industrial practices and international standards. The third one is the coding application, but in regards with the international standardization and certification issues. And the fourth one is the basic one, the quality control, the quality issues, basically inspection, quality control, quality assurance
Yeah.
issues that should be done with regards to industrial standards or international standards.
Yeah.
Basically, this is mine. By the way, can I say hello to my good friend, very nice friend, Benji Albot, because he's a really great man of wiseness, and he knows a great deal of knowledge about polyurea technology, science. So anyone who needs information about polyurea, they can just go and talk with Benji.
We love Benji here.
Yeah, we had
I
done
love Benji too.
we done a live stream with the ultimate team of Benji Abbott and Dudley Primo talking polyurea, and it was actually one of our best streams when it came to viewing, and then also in its post life, let's say back out on my YouTube channel and then back out as a video, it did very well. So I agree definitely about Benji. He's an awesome guy. What I wanted to do is unfortunately the audio got cut off of Nelson De La Cruz's message, and I can speak to some extent because of my experience in working with owners and other stakeholders in Latin America. And what Nelson was addressing is that in Latin America, they have made amazing strides to overcome the inadequate addressing of corrosion and focusing more on making sure that there are quality programs established. And then also too, that when you're looking at, for example, surface preparation, training is super critical. Having the right equipment, having the right materials. And Heidi, we had an opportunity to talk with Mauricio Herrera from Blasting Experts, and he talked about a lot of things that his company was doing in Colombia and also in Latin America with their operations. And so Nelson was really talking about there is more of a need to bring more training, education, and awareness. But things are definitely improving in Latin America, but they have a long way to go. And I think pretty much every country in the world, we've got a long way to go still when it comes to corrosion, and then also looking at how to effectively use protective coatings and things like that to mitigate corrosion, control corrosion, and things like that. So
you mentioned, and Nelson mentioned, material selection is very important. What are some of the factors that you think of in selecting materials? Because it's very important in our industry, in the pipeline industry, to look at things such as environment and other coatings, current coatings that are already on the substrate, things like that. What are the factors that you guys think of?
What I'd like to throw out there, I mean, it could be something as really simple as dissimilar metals. So in wastewater treatment, there have been opportunities where I've been on sites where you can see that whoever really laid out the design, they probably didn't fully understand that when you have a dissimilar metal situation, you're going to create a bigger problem.
Is that called galvanic corrosion?
Correct. So, you have to make sure that when you're using the right nuts and bolts and brackets and things like that, are they going to be more compatible, or are they going to create a bigger issue for the superstructure, the infrastructure, whatever it might be? I mean, it could be a raking arm, for example. It could be a simple angle that's bolted onto, another piece of metal and things like that. So,
and it deteriorates fast. And
correct.
It's great.
Because the one's going to sacrifice, because if it's the at that point on the scale where it's going to really want to sacrifice itself, just like with ships, we put anodes on ships so that they take the corrosion away from the vessel, and they actually are the ones that sacrifice themselves. So there's, like I say, the material planning is super critical, and that engineering and design stage is important to make sure that you look at these things. Tolga probably could, speak a little bit more about the engineering side when it comes to design engineering with materials. Anything you want to add there, Tolga?
Yeah, James, I do want to add one thing. There is this international standard called ISO 12944. And this addresses, I think it's in the part 1. And part 1 of this is the design issues because of the design. So there is some kind of very nice drawings and schemas and schematic schemes in regards to what you are saying, like how to deal with design issues. So I recommend people to look at this ISO 12944 standard.
Very good point. Yeah. Payal, what are some of the factors that you see over there in Fiji in the islands?
To be honest, Heidi, I'm making notes. I'm like just like writing here. Whatever you guys say, I'm just writing.
That's okay. It's such a great opportunity to learn. So I'm the same way. I have my calendar here that I make note every live stream. I love to learn. So I'm right there with you. We were talking about material selection and the factors that we consider when choosing which material is right in corrosion prevention.
Actually, I think that's how the idea for me started when I was looking for a particular coating. I was doing a lot of research and I was looking for a particular coating that I could bring into Fiji and start building its infrastructure. I was researching on the market, and I did come across, and I've mentioned this with Jim, and I've managed to hold an exclusive for these two companies. One of them is from Turkey. One of the
Nice.
good companies from Turkey, and one is in the US. I wouldn't want to mention names right now because I'm now listening and I'm looking for experts to tell me what is the best coating out there. So we were looking for ISO certification or these words like awards. These coating have won any awards, and we actually got few chemicals coating, but then it wouldn't make any sense that applying the best coating in the world if the first two or the three stages, as mentioned through Tolga, that was not done properly. This is why now we want to make sure that these things are done properly. Then the actual benefit of this coating makes sense on any infrastructure or property. And I think we do need the best here because of our environment and everything. We are very focused. Fiji is also the center for the COP21. And then we are also leading the nation, the Pacific Islands, in terms of what's happening around us in terms of global warming. And these standards or these certification will actually help us. So if there's recommendation, I'm always open here to take any recommendations given by guys.
Thank you, Peha. By the way, can I add one more comment, Heidi, about design for corrosion control? Hello?
What was that?
Good.
Can I include one more comment from me? I mean, about designing. There is a very nice virtual program from AMP, designing for corrosion control. I was looking for that from the internet. So anyone who wants to have more information about this for design issues for corrosion control, there is a virtual training from AMP. It's called Designing for Corrosion Control. So if they want to have more information, they can just Google AMP Designing for Corrosion Control, and there they can find. So I see from June 1st to 4, 2021, there is an English virtual course.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of NACE, AMP, and even SSBC older literature out there if you Google that term. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, and so much of it's virtual again as a result of the pandemic. A lot of it's either virtual put on there as online courses or hybrid. There are a lot of the certification courses that are now being done where it's a hybrid where it's a virtual class and then you do your practicals at a location. So it's interesting to see how training, even the training and certifications professionally, how they've changed from the result of the pandemic. But it's in a good way, and earlier, Ravi had posted about, that we should aim to bring out, more education and here's a message he put here earlier, more education on digitalization and data interpretation and things like that. So, again, we're working with a lot of advanced different systems out there when it comes to doing assessment, inspection. Heidi, we had the chance to interview David Rivet from Rivet Coatings Consultants. He was talking about, the equipment that he brings to bear when it comes to doing forensic failure analysis, both related to corrosion and then obviously coatings. Now he's working predominantly with super yachts, and, corrosion, again, it impacts so many different aspects of our lives, no matter, what scale of society we're in. So it's just interesting to have these conversations that we've had with a lot of different people, and also here, Tolga, you got a thanks there for such information. Good job.
By the way, I just missed this episode of you. Is it possible for you to share it in the chat below?
The one on the super yachts?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it seems interesting.
Yeah, it's on. It is on my YouTube channel. Probably we did that about a month ago, I think. Right, Heidi? Yeah. So I'll send you the link, definitely. And then you could check it out. All the live streams do ultimately go onto the YouTube channel and everything like that. Why don't we do this? And let me see if I can bring this up. These videos have not been working for me today. So I think what we want to do is talk about the 2016 impact study that was conducted by NACE International. And, earlier I'd mentioned you had a 2002 study that was done. And up into when I first started with SSPC, I really heavily utilized that 2002 study because it was so critical and important for a lot of the engineers and specifiers that I was working with at Legacy SSPC, because what I'm trying to do, obviously, I'm trying to paint that picture where, obviously corrosion is the challenge. And, sometimes in most cases, you want to have a blended approach when you tackle corrosion, and that's blending cathodic protection and protective coatings. So you want to have that blended strategy when it comes to it, but also too, to make sure that you have in place assessment, because you want to be able to catalog your assets and understand where they're at in the process. And then that helps you with the budgeting and also project planning, right? So that you're not faced with a critical situation. And, if you have a pipeline, if you're in an oil refinery, the worst thing that can happen is a failure. And obviously that could impact lives, physical safety, but it also can lead to bad press releases. You have a leak, you have an explosion, or you have a fire. And so, obviously addressing these corrosion issues, but having that blended approach to make sure that you have a good strategy in place when it comes to corrosion management and mitigation.
We spoke a lot about, and we don't have to dive into this, but we've spoke a lot about the prevention. What about when corrosion actually takes place? Do you replace, do you rehab it, repair it? What are some of the factors in deciding replacement or repair for owners in regards to,
Well, when you're looking at replacement, obviously that's going to be in a situation where you're in a worst case scenario. You, as an owner, when you have assets, especially when you're talking about, potentially billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, or taking production offline or interrupting some type of service, or, some of this might be critical. You want to make sure that you are addressing your assets so that you don't have to get into that replacement. That's one thing you want to try to avoid at all costs. So the thing to do is to make sure that you do have these assessment plans in place, process procedures, but you have an overall strategy when it comes to corrosion management and mitigation. And like I say, it has that blended approach where it deals with the cathodic protection, it deals with the use of protective coatings. And again, protective coatings can be a lot of different things. It could be, there are some types of surface treatments. It could be liquid applied. It could be powder coating. It could be thermal spray coatings.
Plastic.
Correct. There are so many ways to really think of, what is a protective coating. In a way, it's kind of a generic name. And if you really think about it, a lot of people think of it just as paint. But it's more than just paint. A friend of mine in the industry that's very amazing professional when it comes to thermal spray. You have companies like SpaceX, where they're utilizing these different types of advanced coating systems, metallizing, because not only do we have to think about corrosion here
Yes.
globally here on the surface, but as we go into space, there are elements of space that do impact different materials and metals and things like that we also have to make sure that we have, again, a corrosion awareness in, let's say, in space, but also we have plans and everything like that on how to maintain, how to properly address things. With Payal earlier, we were talking about, on Mars, the drone just had its first flight. So that's the first time we've actually had flight on another planet. The other thing is the probe that's up there, the rover, created 5 minutes worth of oxygen from the atmosphere of Mars, so that basically an astronaut could survive. So now we are starting to see we have capabilities to be able to go to Mars, for example. Now we're going to be living in an environment too that probably in most cases is going to impact materials and metals. So it's just amazing when we think about it. It's not just a global cost of corrosion, it could be a universal cost of corrosion now.
Perfect, very perfect. It's spot on, James.
Yeah. So
just to add my couple of pins. Yeah, just yesterday evening, I read an article in NASA. I think it's about the moon. In the moon, there is also an oxygen. They are discussing about if it is the oxygen coming from Earth or coming from the meteorites. So even in the moon, there is corrosion.
Yeah, because there was that article about the moon's rusting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right, I remember that. I'm sorry, Heidi.
Well, there's corrosion anywhere you're going to see gases. What are some of the gases, moisture? I don't know. I'm not an expert on space or the moon gases that are up there. I apologize, but you're going to see corrosion anywhere there is, like I mentioned earlier, atmospheric corrosion. The company I work for and represent, in our protective coatings, we have 4 different ones. Just in our small business, our small company, there's wax petroleum based, we have viscous elastic, we have epoxy, and we have a composite. And so that's just in our small company, but there's a million other, like you mentioned, kinds, and now we're focusing on space. The gases, the kinds of gases that are in space come into play when creating spaceship coatings.
Yeah. In fact, I did a 2-minute lesson. It's on the playlist from last year. A 2-minute lesson on basically it's called space coatings used in space. And we're talking about some advanced type of technologies that are out there.
It has to be
Self-healing coatings. So now you're looking at some form of a biological it's weird when you look at this because you think it's science fiction, right? But a biological aspect of a coating system that can help heal the coating system, ballistic coatings. So now we're talking about the potential maybe to not only self-heal, but to resist impact.
So
it comes into play with like departments of defenses, right?
Yeah.
You know?
So you are particularly speaking about smart coatings in general. James.
Definitely. And Payal is involved in nano coatings. So, when we're looking at all these different types of coating systems out there, and the nanotechnology, and it's just amazing to think where things are going. So what I want to do is let's go back and focus in on the impact study. So in 2014 was when it was first commissioned, and obviously it was released in 2016. But it was really, the purpose was to update the global cost of corrosion, the 2002 study that was done. And it really did do an amazing job when it came to kind of showing that there's a progression of the challenge and the cost of corrosion. But it also went in depth where it wanted to review current, corrosion management processes that are in place, programs that are in place and things like that, and then really go ahead and offer out to different industries. I use the word here, templates, when it comes to corrosion management, but to stress the need to have corrosion assessment and corrosion programs in place, and then obviously tying that all into financial models and then benchmarking as well. Tolga, when it comes to corrosion management, let's say process and programs, can you provide any insight of what you've experienced or seen or worked with in, let's say, Europe or Turkey?
As far as I have researched so far and experienced, the best overall corrosion programs are coming from NACE International and SSPC and AMP, actually. But in the Europe, there are some studies, especially focused around EFC, European Federation of Coatings, the European Federation of Corrosion. So in European Federation of Corrosion, there are task groups. And I recommend people to go to their website, European Federation of Corrosion, and to see their task groups. They are working on corrosion programs for different industries, the European Federation of Corrosion, like nuclear corrosion, like in oil and gas corrosion, like different industries, like bridge corrosion. So the EFC working parties, they say they are just calling that EFC VP or working parties. So that is one source of information for the European side of the corrosion programs. The other side is actually it's both European and international. It's ISO, the International Standard Organization. The ISO has a task committee. It's 156, the task committee of corrosion of metals and alloys. ISO task committee 156. There are a lot of the bunch of corrosion standards and corrosion related to corrosion programs. So I could, the time is not enough for discussing that standards. But there are a lot of standards. But mainly one of the standards stands out. It is the ISO 23222, and it's recently revised. It's corrosion control engineering life cycle risk assessment standard. So basically, there are some standards and programs in Europe, but as far as I believe, it's not a biased thing, but it's one of the best one is the impact study or impact plus study, or developed by NACE International AMP. James?
Yeah, and obviously, as you can see here on the screen here, 2.5 trillion, in US dollars, annual global cost of corrosion, and that is very critical, obviously, because it takes away from the gross domestic, obviously, the production of a country, but also when we're looking at with the global aspect of it. The other thing too with the study, I talked about, up to 35% of annual corrosion costs, can be saved just by implementing, corrosion management practices and programs. Now, just because you have a program in place, that doesn't mean that it automatically you're going to have some, obviously see cost savings. This is more of a cultural when it comes to a company or even a country, let's say, to really embrace it. And they have to make sure that they, again, educate those individuals that are involved, being decision makers, those who are going to be the ones who are going to do the planning and execution, but also make sure that everyone understands throughout the whole process, through the whole infrastructure, or let's say structure. Again, they all have to believe it, and they all have to adopt it, and they also have to put it into use as well. The average, global GDP that was came out of the impact that came out of the study from 2002 was that we did see an increase. So this is a growing problem, and Heidi and I can speak, specifically here in the States. We've got a very, an aging infrastructure. I think with the power grid, I want to say the power grid's got to be at least, probably 50, almost 60 years in
Yes.
age. I know when it comes to the wastewater side, we're looking at close to 70 years, where a lot of this stuff was designed to last for, 20, 30 years and then be, to Heidi's point earlier, basically replaced. But it's expensive to do that. So a lot of these assets, we're pushing them beyond their normal design, and we want to get more out of them. So again, that's where these strategies come into play, blending it with the cathodic and the coatings. That makes a perfect system to be able to address these issues.
It's important to also know that the coatings, that your coatings are non-shielding, that they work with cathodic protection. All of our products do. We're at VCP sales, and that was very important to my boss when choosing which ones to carry, because cathodic protection is very sustaining. Using that practice in corrosion mitigation, there's so many. Help me out here, Jim. There's so many ways.
No, yeah, you're 100%, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's something I did not talk about. Was when you're looking at materials, you have to realize too that materials can interact with each other and they could cause havoc as well. Just like we talked earlier about dissimilar metals, you might have one type of a coating with another type of coating system that just are not compatible. So a lot of it, you really need to know your material. So, reviewing material data sheets, talking to manufacturers and things like that. That's really important to make sure that you have a full understanding of what you're putting into the asset, but also too, when you're doing the maintenance of it, what's there and will it impact a new coating system. That's why, again, when we look at total removal of an existing coating, again, that takes a level for a contractor. First off, you want to make sure that they're qualified to do that. But the second thing is when it comes to their crews, are they trained? And the most important thing, I think, in some cases is going to be obviously certified. Do they know how to properly achieve a surface profile? Did they learn it on the job, or did they also get certified? So there's so many things that go into really looking at how we address these challenges and things like that. Tolga, I think you said that the ISO is a TC 156. Is that what you're saying in the chat? Oh, we can't hear.
I'm sorry. It's a task committee, ISO task committee, especially for corrosion and corrosion of metals. So anyone who needs information about corrosion assessment, corrosion programs, definitely they should search for ISO task committee 156.
Thank you.
Perfect. And to close up this part of our discussion, with the impact study, some of the takeaways, and really what has to happen is businesses really need to view these corrosion management strategies as business critical, and then a continuous investment that needs to be done in corrosion control, especially when it comes to technologies, but also different newer techniques on tackling corrosion. That's mission critical. You want to make sure that your infrastructure, again, is being maintained so that it's up and running, production's happening, there's no interruption of service, or, God forbid, a catastrophic event. You don't want to have a failure where it impacts safety, both human safety and environmental safety and other things like that. And then really when these industries, it has to be, you really need to have an all hands on type of approach to this, to make sure that, again, throughout the whole process, everybody's involved. So it's going to be a corporate culture thing. It's going to be a community cultural thing, or a national cultural thing, to be able to address it. And then for those that really want to look at the report in its entirety, you want to visit impact.nace.org. That's impactnace.org. I highly recommend it. I utilize the previous study and the 2016 study because it's got a lot of great information in there, but it also helps drive the messaging when it comes to looking at cathodic protection, corrosion mitigation methods and things like that, these management programs and all these strategies, but also on the protective coating side. So like I said earlier, it covers both sides of the coin now for me, where I'm not just talking about just talking about one aspect of it. And then Lee posted here. Let's do this. Let's take this.
I was just reading it.
Where he's talking about, obviously, it's a benchmark on it. And, Lee, that's a great point. Tolga, I know you've had the opportunity to utilize the NACE report as well. Payal, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to take a look at that report, but that, I believe, will help you immensely in your mission regarding, in Fiji and also with island nations to help really drive the message.
Yes, definitely. I'll have a look. I have read most of the NACE website pages and the report they've prepared. So yeah, definitely I'll have a look at that. It sounds very interesting. I'm just like so surprised. Like I think I'm yet to start somewhere.
Yeah. It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then the other thing too, Heidi, did you have any other questions? I wanted to bring up some of the topics that we were going to talk about regarding, obviously pipeline when it comes to changes that have just recently happened in March with the pipeline hazardous
regulatory reform.
Yeah. Any questions that I did not cover with Tolga or Payal that you'd want to cover with them?
No, not really. We could go on. There's a lot of questions and that's why corrosion awareness is important every day. I mean, these conversations, I appreciate that this was on a Saturday because we don't have that much time to share. Now that events are coming back, I'm excited to get to speak to more people in person and on a casual basis, just speaking of all the education and the technology and the things that are coming into the corrosion prevention market. So no, I mean, not off the top of my head, I don't.
I'm sure maybe one of the topics we cover will. Go ahead, Tolga, I'm sorry.
Jim, did you mention about, I couldn't remember, did you mention about Department of Defense Corrosion Prevention and Control document? Because it's also very comprehensive document. I mean, I have also very used a lot in my studies or in my work.
No, we did not cover that, but I mean, I think you've had some interaction and involvement when it comes to the corrosion on the DoD side, Corrosion Policy Oversight Office. Could you go in a little bit more detail about what resources they have available, and really on a global basis too?
Yeah, they have a website, especially for corrosion, the Department of Defense, and I believe that SSPC and NACE and now AMP has some strategic alliance with their trainings, their studies, and in their website. Right now, I'm looking at their website. There are a lot of documents, including animations, videos, and the program. There is a corrosion control program of Department of Defense. So they call it CPC, Corrosion Prevention and Control Program.
Very good, very good. We just had another question pop on here, regarding, how will we get the pipeline corrosion knowledge virtually? So, really when I'm looking at this question is that, obviously right now, the virtual stuff is more to address the pandemic, but I think even coming out of it, we stay with a blend of virtual and then also on-site, or let's say practical stuff that's done, at a location. There's a lot of information regarding pipeline when it comes to, design, and also too when writing a specification, also for maintenance planning and corrosion plannings and things like that. So there's a lot of different virtual trainings that you can get for that. Now, when it comes to obviously a practical side, and what I mean by that is if you're looking at doing inspection of, let's say, a weld joints, or you're looking at the actual inspection aspect of it, maybe it's a coating system or wraps that are used and things like that, you're going to have to really have some practical on that. And so there are ways, obviously, both in the field and then also in, let's say, in the classroom, to be able to understand practical inspection techniques and things like that. So I do believe that there is a great balance that can be done. And then there's a lot of other types of topics that can be covered as well. Corrosion under insulation. Insulation.
Insulation, yes.
Mick, when you're talking about microbial, even when you're looking at stray currents and things like that, there's a lot of great training out there from NACE International and Legacy NACE International, Legacy SSPC, now under AMP, that can really benefit you in different ways. And so, take advantage of that where you can. And there's also a lot of other information out there that's available from different industries. So Lee posted, Payal, for, I think you're doing a great job with your awesome, keep it up.
You
Thank
are
you
doing
so
a
much,
great
Lee
job.
Wilson. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm hoping that by given next year we'll be able to make it a major celebration, and these programs or the topics of corrosion and prevention will be included in universities or our school curriculum, and we are fully operational and reaching out to the other Pacific Island already. So yeah, I'm making a note of everything you guys saying, and we'll do more research.
Yeah, and make sure you are connected to Lee Wilson. Lee Wilson's he's based out of the UK, but again, he's a global inspector. He's also in a lead instructor. Great professional in the industry.
And Jim,
go ahead.
There is a very nice. There's a very nice very nice book from Lee Wilson. The field is the field guide for coding inspectors.
Yeah, Lee. Obviously, you're watching, so feel free to post about your new publication. It's I've been reading a lot of good. I need to get it, but I've been reading a lot of good posts about this publication from Lee. So great job, Lee. So let's go ahead and we'll bring up the topics here. Let's see here. The first one we really wanted to focus on is we had Heidi and I had a live stream with Mike Lamont from TRC Companies. And Mike did talk about when we're dealing with pipeline, and the administration is a Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or FSMA. Heidi, I thought I had it right this time. So in that impacts here domestically in the United States. And so, they really are looking at the aspect of when we're dealing with these transmission pipelines, the gas pipelines and things like that. Here in the States, a lot of our oil is being transported on rail car, which obviously that has to be addressed, when you're talking about safety and in corrosion, and also, again, protective coating systems for these rail cars and things like that. But when we're talking about gas pipelines, we have thousands and thousands of miles of gas pipelines that run here in North America. And, part of it is to make sure, obviously, that there is a corrosion management and mitigation plans that are in place. Go ahead.
PHMSA stands for Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. So they track the data on the frequency of things such as failures, incidents, and accidents in relation to the pipeline industry. And they keep track of this and then set the standards and the regulations.
Definitely. And then, we had also, in addition to Mike Lamont, we had Jane Brown on from Brown Corrosion Services. Jane talked about the aspect of, on the oil side, on the oil pipelines too, the regulations that are there now for not only the assessments and having a corrosion management program in place, but on that assessment, going through and making sure that you're checking, for example, when you're dealing with moisture within these pipelines, but to also make sure that there are processes and procedures that are in place, because again, God forbid you don't want a catastrophic situation. And, here in the States, we've had those, here in my area, we've had gas pipelines that have exploded and have unfortunately caused damage to property, and a terrible thing is taken lives as well. So, it's really, really important to, again, to focus on that. Heidi, now, obviously, with VCP sales and your side, you're working a lot more in the pipeline side than what I typically would be. Any insights that you want to add regarding these new regulations that came out for March that implemented?
it was. I'll add that it was a reform, and it. Let me look it up. I I haven't read about this in a few months, but it was a positive reform in the sense that they've lightened some of the regulations on maintenance. It allowed, let's see. And feel free to interrupt while I.
Oh, no problem at all. I mean, again, a lot of times when we're looking at these regulations, they do go through a process of public comment. They get changed a lot. And, these particular ones really did get a lot of scrutiny as to what is reasonable, but also too looking at what's in the best interest of not only the industry, but when you're talking about public safety, environmental, and things like that. And one of the other articles that we're going to talk about that's coming up is we're dealing with, again, as a result of the pandemic, we had a reduction in consumption. And so when we're looking at these pipelines, some of these pipelines are being idled and some are basically being decommissioned. And, again, this is where these corrosion management strategies really come into play.
Well, the PHMSA, the regulatory reform doesn't really have to do with the coatings. Ease the burdens on the construction and the maintenance and the inspection side. But this agency is something that would be good for us to share so that people can look up what is PHMSA and how it relates to the corrosion industry.
I'll definitely put that in the on the YouTube. When I post this up on YouTube, I'll make sure we put the links to all these articles too, and then obviously to the organization as well, which is a government agency. I'm sorry, and put that in. The next article that I wanted to kind of cover is regarding, when we're dealing with offshore oil and gas, updating regulations are really needed. The General Accounting Office, the GAO, had come out and did a study, and they said that, we've got a lot of this infrastructure that's out there. And I'll just read it for you here. It says, since 1960s, the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement has allowed the offshore oil and gas industry to leave 97% of pipelines, and that's over 18,000 miles, on the seafloor when no longer in use. Pipelines still contain oil or gas if they're not properly cleaned out or decommissioned. Now, the challenge with it is when you're doing assessments on these older pipelines, especially when you're offshore, you have currents involved in water flow. So you can't automatically always tell, are they leaking gas? Are they leaking oil if they still have that inside of it? The GAO is really kind of pushing back and saying that the Bureau needs to have standards in place like cleaning and burial met, so that if the pipeline is going to be covered over, but it also needs to address the monitoring of the pipeline conditions. So in other words, if these are decommissioned and they're going to stay in place, there has to be some type of assessment plan to just check and make sure that there isn't any type of environmental impact on it. And I thought it was pretty interesting what the GAO had found, where they're talking about, the integrity of approximately 8,600 miles of active offshore oil and gas pipelines located on the seafloor in the Gulf of Mexico does not generally conduct or require any subsea inspection of active pipelines. Instead, the Bureau relies on monthly surface observations and pressure sensors to detect leaks. So again, the measures that are currently in place are really not adequate enough, because if you're relying on surface observation or you have sensors in place, by the time you see something or it's indicated on a sensor, depending on how it does indicate on the sensor, you might already have a catastrophic situation. And I'm talking about more of a leak that might happen. And obviously, we all remember the BP leak. We all remember all these different events that happen, not only here, but globally as well when it comes to offshore oil production.
And I think they're saying and why this was created, like you mentioned in the beginning, was the subsea current could take anything that you would notice outside of the sea. You're not going to get those same symptoms because that current moves it. But it's also important to mention here that the rail cars corrosion awareness is so important, because just like pipeline, the rail cars are going to see it as well, and do see it now. I mean, there's protective coatings and linings and things like such as that, but that could be catastrophic as well, with the rail car transportation of the oil.
And definitely, and then Tolga, I know in Turkey currently there is a major construction project underway that has, I believe, it's a gas pipeline. You have any updates or information regarding that infrastructure that's being put into Turkey or through Turkey?
There were major pipeline projects, but as far as I know, James, there is no project for pipeline under construction right now. We have under construction a nuclear power plant, and we are the government is planning for an offshore platform in the future in the Mediterranean or Black Sea. But right now, as far as I couldn't remember what you are saying, James. I mean, do you know the project name, pipeline project name?
I don't know it, but it was the one where it was to have a bypass. Obviously Europe is getting a lot of its natural gas from Russia, and this pipeline was going to run through Turkey, Turkey through Syria, and come in a different direction from another provider. And this way it would be, obviously, I think it's more of a market opportunity where instead of having one primary supplier being Russia, now it has the opportunity.
There is one entry. There is one entry in Wikipedia. It's called Qatar-Turkey pipeline, but it's for proposal right now. Not a real issue, a real time project right now. It's a Qatar-Turkey pipeline. It's a proposal from Qatar, from all the way to Iran, Syria, to Turkey and Europe. Yeah, you are right, but it's not right now. How can I say realized yet?
Okay, that makes sense. And then Lee did post in information here when you're looking at health, safety, environmental legislation for offshore. And there's a link there, and I'll make sure I put that link into the video too as well.
And there's also an Iran, Iraq, Syria pipeline that will be joined with this Qatar Turkey pipeline. So there are projects, but in Turkey and in the Middle East, but right now it's not there. They are not being realized yet.
So Lee comes through. This is the name of the project here. So
TANAP. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see, but it's another new project. It's an old project. I think it has been terminated. I mean, it has been ended. Oh, it's Trans-Anatolian project. Yeah, from the Azerbaijan, from Turkey to Azerbaijan. So big, Caucasus, Kafkas. We say Kafkaslar. What is the name of the? I think Caucasus, or how can we say?
Cautious?
No. We say in Turkish Kafkas, but but I couldn't recall. It's in English. It's a Caucasian. From the Caucasian to Europe, there will be a pipeline. It's called Trans-Anatolian gas pipeline.
So there might be multiples. Yeah,
but it's opened. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just
that's okay.
Making my mistake. It's opened in June 12, 2018. So it's a new project. It has been ended.
Okay. And then the last article that I wanted to cover is more recent news here, and it deals with Enbridge Energy, where we had a pipeline. Heidi, I think you have more information on what specifically happened.
This, and just to correct you, this is from 2017, and I found this article interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. The reason I found this article interesting, it's where there were protests against the Enbridge pipeline and saying that it was suffering from corrosion in different ways, and brought up a lot of risks involved with it. And what was interesting was there was no actual, they misused terms, and you can see the article, Jim, I'm sure you'll share that on the YouTube version as well. But they were misusing terms such as delaminated and delamination in the pipeline, and pitting and holidays, and throwing these terms around. And there was no actual metal exposure. It was just corrosion on the outer wrap around the pipeline. So, and Enbridge sent a very educated presenter to educate them on the different terms, and a lot of the protesters were there. So they got a little bit of the pipeline integrity industry education, because these terms are there, these regulations are there for a reason. These, the corrosion awareness is so important in the sense that learning these terms and knowing how it affects the pipeline or any substrate or metal or material. Because again, in this article, they were saying that there was a risk for hazard, etc., but there was no metal exposure. It was just the outer wrap. The coating was still intact. There were no actual holidays. And it's a good article that showcases corrosion terms and the difference in the risks.
In a full understanding. And then I think also too, what really kind of, I wouldn't say complicated, but made it more accelerated it being more of a flashpoint was, this is in the Lake Michigan, I believe, correct?
Yes. My beloved Lake Michigan. Yes.
Lake Michigan. So let me go ahead and take this back on. I want to pop up this message here. Lee provided additional information here regarding this is a massive project. This is a massive project. I mean, look at this: 20 provinces in Turkey. It's the largest diameter and length.
This is
This is the one that Tolga, we were talking about this massive pipeline project is going on right now.
It's a project. It was a project from the Trans-Anatolian projects. Anatolia is the part of the Asia. It's called Minor Asia. So it is basically connecting the Asia with Europe with the pipelines.
Okay. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive. We have about 10 minutes left, and I think we've covered pretty much everything. Anything closing here we want to talk about?
Jim, I think we need to point one more thing. It's bridge corrosion and bridge corrosion control.
The floor is yours, sir.
And there is one article from NACE International. It's about cost of corrosion study unveiled in 2000. I think it's in 2002. I mean, Federal Highway Agency in United States are doing several researches about corrosion control of bridge corrosion. So it's one of the biggest issues in the world also because of the health and cost and economic issues. So I think we should point out. Would you like to add something about this bridge corrosion and the corrosion programs for bridge?
Oh, definitely. What aspect you want to talk about? You want to talk about just
Well, a good corrosion prevention for bridge would be petroleum-based coating, the viscous elastic coating, because they are very good in extreme temps and wet or dry environments. So I will add that. And you can contact me about either one of those coatings that I supply.
And the thing I think of really when you're looking at coating selection, this is where you really want to have a base knowledge. For example, the SSPC legacy and now under AMP has what's called the C1, which is basically the fundamentals of protective coatings systems. So it really goes into covering the generic aspect. You know, what are these generic coating systems that can be brought to bear on different assets? So once you have a general understanding of what coating systems exist out there and what your options are, or combinations thereof, right? Now that also gives you the opportunity to work with a coating manufacturer and be able to work with their technical support, technical services, or even their representative to understand exactly what do we need to do to address this. Because, you know, when you really think about it with the coating system is not the most expensive part of the project. It's going to be the prep, it's going to be the application, all that labor and everything that goes associated with it. But the thing that can happen is if you don't have proper prep or the proper coating system, or you have incompatible materials,
Absolutely.
it's going to probably lead at some point, if not immediately, it will lead to a failure. So the more you understand, especially those involved in this process, when it comes to design and engineering, being a contractor, being a craft worker, no matter what.
Well, you realize the rep, like you mentioned, reaching out to the manufacturer, we provide training, hands-on training of any of our coatings. So it's important to utilize your rep. With human error, can lead to premature failure. And
definitely
prep we've mentioned a million times, but it is the most important when applying the coating as far as upholding the manufacturer's standards to get that long-lasting performance that it recommends.
But also, too, knowing the environment, the service environment. To give you a good example,
Absolutely, yes.
a friend of mine in Pakistan, you know, his companies, they were working in the mountains of Pakistan, pipeline work. You're dealing in atmosphere. You're dealing with, actually, you know, you're dealing up in a mountain. So obviously the pressure is different, right? And so when you have a blasting operation going on and you have a compressor, the compressor is going to act differently at altitude versus it would at sea level. So you have to make sure that you can vary your surface preparation based on that loss of pressure. And then what do you need to bring to bear to be able to properly apply, prep that particular pipeline or whatever the infrastructure or the surface is. You know, the other aspect of it too is, you know, in some of these situations where you might be just the same example, you're in the mountains of Pakistan, you have environmental conditions going on, very cold weather. You know, Heidi, I had a chance to talk with John from VCP, and we talked about these cold applications, because when you have a pipeline, for example, you can never guarantee that a challenge or an issue is going to happen during the spring and summer. There's chances it could happen right at the high point of the winter. And now all of a sudden, a lot of the product ranges that you have, you've fallen out of that range, and now you're limited as to what you can or cannot do. And so it's good to know these products, no doubt about it.
And one key point to make with those products is, especially with the cold weather epoxy, check the surface temps or surface temperatures in operations as well. So not just during applications, but what are the temperatures that the pipeline's running during operations, because that coating, like we had mentioned, I think John also mentioned on that video with you, you know, our epoxy prevents corrosion much higher operation temps than the standard hybrid epoxy. And that's really important because that can also lead to premature failure. So when you're choosing a material, it's important not the application temps, but this operation temps.
And then also too, how it does interact with environmental conditions. You know, give you a good example. You know, we're, you know, Payals in Fiji. You know, the UV damage that can happen is greater for her than it is for me here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so, you know, obviously you've got to be able to look at these different environmental zones and locations globally, and take a lot of different factors, you know, weathering, sun, other type of exposures that happen.
Oil.
Definitely.
Yeah, even the commodity.
We for our bridges, sorry, Jim. So I did a case study on our bridges and infrastructure. We had 3 different bridges which is not just not to maybe 20 to 30 meter long. The most common problem they face was fatigue cracking, the cracks. So I'm not really sure. Like we do want to know why it happened, and maybe it was something to do with. And it just last three to I think 6 years. One of the regions started showing cracks, and the cost to repair that it was estimated up to $800,000 Fijian, which is about $500,000 US.
Wow.
6 years.
Wow.
It was ridiculous. So these are the loopholes. These are the things that's lacking, that we would like to provide
Definitely.
information to. Even listening to the pipeline or the other presentation that the slides of the information that was shared here, like we do not talk about it. So it is very important, and I'm very glad that we have spoken about it today, and which we will actually look into in terms of corrosion and preparing for it.
Yeah,
Excellent.
for sure. It sounds like that bridge is suffering from stress corrosion cracking. I wonder what is in the environment. And there are corrosion inhibitors, atmospheric as well.
Yeah, environment and our natural, the elements like mentioned by James, the sun, the light, the amount of water, and the traffic also. A small island with a lot of traffic could be one of the main reasons why we face these issues. Yeah.
UV is deterioration is just as important as water erosion. You know, the UV, you got to make sure the material's UV resistant for sure.
Yes.
Unless it's buried.
We're talking about, we keep going back and forth from pipeline and bridges.
Because it's everything. Corrosion impacts everything, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. Even in space.
Yeah, wow.
We talked about that too. Wow, I can't believe we're coming up on the second, completing the second hour here. What a great conversations we've had. A lot of good, great interaction from, again, this was broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So great interaction. In closing, anybody want to add anything? And then what I'm going to do is go through, and I want everybody to give their contact information, and I'll pop up your email addresses and things like that. We close out. Any last thoughts, I guess?
The conversation going on corrosion awareness. Any young professionals, aspiring engineers, encourage them to get into this industry, because we can only use more. Very good.
So Tolga, let's go ahead and give us another what do you want to call it, commercial or whatever, a little advertisement regarding what you do, and also talk about Corrosion Doctor real quick. How can people they go in and register for free?
Okay. No. It's free of registration, free of charge. Anybody can go there. It's just like a hobby of mine. So anybody can look at it for just make leave a good mark behind. I have made it to make a good mark behind. Nothing special.
Yeah, and I do. So, I do get that from Tolga, and read that blog, and it's very, very informative, and it covers, his focus is on a lot of different things, but it's really specific, and I really appreciate the information you're putting out there, and you're doing this, you're doing it again for the love of the industry. You're not monetizing it and so I appreciate that. I commend that.
You know what? Ironically, yesterday in the evening, I was talking with one of my friends. We were talking about this living in the COVID pandemic conditions. As long as we live, James, we are consuming oxygen. You know that. What I'm trying to tell is, as long as we live and we consume oxygen, there will be every time corrosion. There will be everywhere, always corrosion. So, but it's a good, we are lucky that we have some, one of the major societies like AMP, like Australian Corrosion Association or EFC, so that we can take advantage of, like to be connected, like you are in Turkey, and Payal in Fiji, and Heidi in United States. So we are connected. So thanks to AMP, or thanks to SSPC and NACE for connecting us together.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it has been a really good conversation, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your information, as well as you, PL. Anything you want to say before closing? Oh, we might be losing her.
Oh no. Hopefully she'll come back.
Any of you that have any questions about our pipeline coating with VCP sales, put up my email. Please reach out to me. Please utilize my passion for the industry as well as customer service. You can go to www.vcpsales.com. Again, he'll post my email, but it's really been a pleasure being here.
Yeah, and then for reach me, you can reach me at jim@jimkunkel.com. And then obviously a lot of the connections I have, you can also reach out to me at my legacy SSPC email address should be changing sometime in May to reflect AMP. So I'll make sure.
All of us on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, I'll make sure I update everybody and get a message out there on it. But I'm sure that our legacy emails, both on NACE and SSPC side, will continue to work for some time. So that's a very good thing. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think we had an awesome stream. I appreciate everyone who watched again on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Tolga, I appreciate your participation. Payal, I appreciate your participation in this Corrosion Awareness Day. Heidi, I'd love to live stream with you, and this is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And also, it's my pleasure to be with you, Jim and Heidi. Thanks for your contributions. Thanks for your time.
All right. Well, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you and talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.